Hello and welcome back to my world of stuff. Today I'm going to be doing a video which I promised / threatened to do last week. Following the conclusion of the latest series of Doctor Who, I was going to do two videos. I was going to do a overview of the whole series and I was going to do a future of Doctor Who video. I haven't done the overview video yet. I don't know if I'm going to because I think it's probably all been said. I think it's all been said in my individual reviews and in my ranking the episodes video, so I don't know that there's a lot more I can say about my feelings about the series other than the fact that I am writing, or will be writing shortly, a special column for Starburst Magazine Online, just summing up the series in words, written words rather than talky words. So unless anybody particularly wants me to do a video here summing up the series as a whole, I'm going to sort of close the door on it and say season 1 done. Let's look at the future, and that's what I'm going to do in this video. Just talk about Doctor Who's short-term, long-term future. And I'm going to talk about it hopefully without the hysteria of the online lunatics, people I've been warning you away from since I did my ratings videos. There are a lot of videos out there on YouTube from some very angry people who don't like Doctor Who the way it is. They don't like its slightly more progressive feel, its more inclusive feel, its 21st century feel. They're stuck in the past. They want Doctor Who to be like it was in the 70s and 80s. It's not going to be like that again. It's not going to be 25-minute episodes serialised over 26 weeks. Those days are gone. But there is a cadre of Doctor Who fans that won't accept that. They don't accept that this is even Doctor Who. They call it New Who, which is an expression I can't stand. But they just won't make the connection between the old series and the new series. They look at this as something different, as something inferior, which is a matter of opinion. They're entitled to that opinion. There are also other people online who are hate watchers. You get a lot of this on social media these days. People who hate watch things because they like to be angry, they like to hate things. And I do wonder sometimes if it's genuine hate or just clickbait. I think there's a lot of clickbait out there. People know that Doctor Who is a contentious series. Unfortunately, never used to be that way, but these days it's very contentious and people have very polarised opinions on it. And I think that the haters know that by recording constant hate videos with ridiculous thumbnails, with people with googly eyes and stupid headlines, cancel, trash, they will get clicks. And they will get lots of clicks, and of course clicks make money. We know that YouTube is monetized when you get a certain number of subscribers, and you can generate income from it. And if you look at some of these videos, it is alarming to see that they get thousands and thousands of views. Now, I don't know whether that's from people who agree with their views or people who are just curious about people can hate a TV series so much. I don't look at them. I see them online and I'm tempted to jump in and say something, and I have done occasionally, but it is pointless because I don't think that these people genuinely hold these views, and I hope they don't, because if they do, they're lunatics. Basically, they've got mental health problems. But I think that it's a very easy thing to do, to rant and rave about something which is beloved, because you know that there'll be a proportion of people who agree with you for some reason, and also they know it makes them money. And I don't really believe that people hate Doctor Who that much. And I've seen some of the comments. It is quite bizarre that the hate that people seem to spew out about the show, about its stars, about its producers. This has been going on for a long time. This has been going on since the Stephen Moffat era. And of course, I hold my hands up to say that I wasn't a big fan of Stephen Moffat, but I hope in all my commentary about him, I never resorted to crudities and insults and some of the crap that these people have spewed out. And I'm thinking about that. I think it went back to the first Russell T Davies era as well. People were a small proportion of people were unhappy with that first era of Doctor Who, which of course is now quite rightly looked upon as a golden era. So it is very easy to be taken in by some of this stuff. And what I've always tried to do, and what I tried to do in my ratings analyses, was to step back a bit and look at the perspective of the whole picture of Doctor Who, where it fits into TV and streaming at the moment. And it is difficult really to know, because we don't know. We're not in the industry. We don't have access to all the figures. We get little scraps of information here and there, and we interpret that the way we want to. I try to interpret it in a more positive way. Some of the internet imbeciles will leap on it as proof that the show is doomed and cancelled and RIP Doctor Who and all this nonsense. But none of us know the whole picture. None of us know all the viewing figures and the metrics and the Disney reception worldwide. We just don't know. So we can't really predict the future of Doctor Who. We can just talk about it and discuss it, hopefully rationally and sensibly. And now that the series is finished, I think we can say that it has underachieved in the UK. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Even Russell T Davies himself has admitted that the viewing figures aren't what they wanted them to be. And I think perhaps even he was looking back to those golden days when he first came into the series in 2005, when it was getting 8, 9, 10 million viewers. Whether he thought that was going to happen again, I don't know. He's realistic enough to know that TV shows don't get those figures these days. Certainly dramas very rarely get those figures. Even as I've said this before, even the once monolithic soap operas that bestrode the television landscape like big striding things struggle to get 4 or 5 million these days on a good day. So I think it was unrealistic to expect Doctor Who to that. But as Doctor Who fans, we always want it to overachieve. We always want it to be incredibly popular. We want it to break out of that sci-fi ghetto and be a massive show that appeals to a massive audience. And what we've seen this year, overnight figures between 2 and 3 million, and catch-up figures of between 3.5 million. And I'm not going to rehearse all those figures again. Now, when the figures are all out, certainly 7-day figures are out for all the episodes. And the last episode, Empire of Death, I think had 3.69 viewing figures. So it was a decent end. And it was number 18 in the ratings for the week. Would have been higher if not for umpteen football matches. So I think it's doing okay in the current context of viewing figures. You know, I'm not going to go through the people who say, but Sylvester McCoy was getting 3 million and he was cancelled. A different TV world, you know. When Sylvester McCoy got 3 million viewers, it wasn't in the top 100. Now it's getting 3.5 million, and it's number 18, and it's constantly in the top 20. I think it's only dropped out of the top 20 once this year. So on that metric, it's doing okay. It's sort of holding its own. But it's not excelling, which is what we always want it to do. Looking to its future, we know that the Disney streaming deal is a massive thing, and has been a massive thing, because it's opened up the show potentially to a huge worldwide audience that has access to Disney+. I miss the days, I was just thinking this the other day, I miss the days when the BBC used to say, yeah, Doctor Who's got 100 million viewers in 70 countries and things like that. Those were the metrics that were always sort of trotted out back in the 70s and 80s when Doctor Who was a big British hit and it was very popular across the world. I think by the very fact that it's on Disney now means that those numbers aren't possible, I think, because not everybody's got it. A lot of people choose not to have it. A lot of people may have other streaming services. Some people might have no streaming services. So it's probably, even though it's available to a larger audience, it's available to a smaller audience, if you see what I mean, because it's not available outside the UK on traditional broadcast channels, which is where it's always accrued its audiences worldwide in the past. I have to say that I think the idea of Doctor Who becoming this huge phenomenon because it was on Disney was always pie in the sky. I didn't see it happening. Because I don't think Doctor Who's that sort of show. Doctor Who is very British, it's very quirky, it's very odd. It isn't the hard sci-fi of some of the big shows that we get these days. It's not a big fantasy franchise. It's not got that huge Game of Thrones type appeal. It hasn't got a Star Trek appeal as such. It hasn't got Stranger Things. It's competing in a different landscape now. And I think Doctor Who is always going to be something which is a popular, well-received and well-loved cult hit. But I think the idea that it was going to bestride the streaming services like this Colossus and break all records for Disney+, I never saw that happening. I didn't see it happening. Now again, we don't know what the Disney figures are. There is a site, I don't know how reliable it is, I think I mentioned it before, called Flix Patrol, which gives access to what purport to be Disney top 10s during the week. Doctor Who sort of crept into the top 10 for a couple of days and then crept out again. So it hasn't been a big, long, sustainable hit, but it has been generating interest and generating views on Disney+. Now again, we don't know what Disney+ wanted from it. We don't know if Disney+ expected it to be a massive smash, or they just invested in it to generate new subscribers, to get new people on board, to keep people interested in Disney+. We also know that Disney+ are financing or part of financing the series. I understand, and again, this is just odds and sods here and there, because we don't know the facts. I understand the budget for a Doctor Who episode now is about 6 million, whereas I think in the previous year it was about 2.5 million. So Disney have obviously pumped a substantial amount into it. Whether that's reflected on screen is a matter for you. I'm not going to go into all that again. So Disney are pumping money into it. But if you think about it, for 8 episodes of Doctor Who, they're spending about $24 million. Compare that to the money that they spend on the Marvel series and the Star Wars series, which are significantly larger sums than that. I think that on that basis that they're not spending hundreds of millions, I hope that Doctor Who is doing well enough and generating enough interest to make that a worthwhile investment, because they're only putting a proportion of the budget in. They only need to get a certain comeback from that in terms of subscribers and views and so on, and certain numbers of hours. I don't know how Disney's metrics work. They calculate numbers of minutes and things like that. It's all very arcane and it's not for the likes of me. But I suspect that Doctor Who is a small investment for Disney that's probably going to get them a small return. And I think that was all it was ever going to do, because much as I love Doctor Who, I am aware that it doesn't have that massive appeal that other shows in the genre have. It's as simple as that. It's very popular. It's been around for 61 years. But there's something about it that seems to hold it back from being huge, because it is odd, it is bizarre, it is quirky. And I think this series in particular has been quirky because Russell T Davies has refashioned it with this sort of supernatural fantasy type flavour, which again is not necessarily chiming with the genre shows that are out there at the moment. I think a lot of people think that the future of Doctor Who depends entirely on Disney money. I don't think it does. We know that the series was commissioned for 2 series, 2 Christmas specials, the 3 anniversary specials, and a 5-part spin-off. I'll talk briefly about that in a moment. That's Disney's initial investment. I think they wanted to see how the series goes across 2 series. Russell T Davies has spoken that pre-production is sort of underway on a 3rd series. And again, I'm calling it Series 3 and Series 2. We know it's not that, but they're calling it that under this new regime. We know that he's working on Series 3, and he seems pretty certain that there will be a Season 3 commission. I think there will be 2. And I think there'll probably be a Season 4 commission. I suspect that when Disney do recommission, it'll be for 2 more series. And I suspect those will be with Russell T Davies at the helm. Those will be with Ncuti Gatwa at the helm. And I think after that, things will change. And again, this is just me talking about the future of Doctor Who. This is where I see it being. I can't see Disney pulling the plug after 2 series, especially if it's making small waves internationally, which is, you know, they wanted a result of some sort. Of course, they would have loved to have had millions of new subscribers and in the top of the charts for days on end. I didn't think that was ever going to happen, but I think it's sort of there. It's sort of nibbling away at the corners of that sort of market. So I think Disney, with no reason to suspect that, but I think Disney will be fairly happy with what they've got for a fairly small investment compared to the other big hitting shows, the Marvel shows, the Star Wars shows, which I don't think are doing all that well for all the money that goes into them. But again, purely, this is all my opinion, this is all my conjecture about what happens. What happens though if that doesn't happen? What if Disney after 2 series say, yeah, thank you very much, but it hasn't really worked for us, you know, good luck for the future. Russell has again mentioned that if Disney isn't the be all and end all to Doctor Who's future, Doctor Who survived for the best part of 60 years without Disney being anywhere near it on a small budget. And if you look back at the seasons that we have funded by the BBC, purely by the BBC, it's not been bad. It's looked pretty good. And I think everybody thought that the Disney money would make the show look massively cinematic. And I've mentioned this before, I haven't necessarily seen that on screen because the stories have been a little bit smaller apart from the finale. It's been a bit more intimate, and I think the money's probably gone in different places rather than huge special effects scenes. Because Doctor Who's not about that. Doctor Who isn't about huge space battles and massive special effects things. When it does that, it's great and it's fantastic and it looks great, but it isn't necessarily about that all the time. So I think Doctor Who can survive perfectly well on a smaller budget, and I think Russell's even said that there is sort of provision for that in place. Not that they're looking for it to happen. Obviously they would like more money so they can do more with it, but he has said, you know, I would have no problem in doing a smaller scale Doctor Who stories. And if smaller scale Doctor Who stories means stories made on a budget, like, and I will go back to this as my example, War of the Sontarans from the Flux season, well, that looked pretty good to me. And I think that if it does go back to the BBC, I think Bad Wolf will still be involved. They will have some investment, so I think it will still have a higher budget than it had when it was with the BBC purely. So I don't think that even if Disney pull out, a lot of these naysayers and fools online are saying, haha, Disney will cancel it after 2 seasons. No, Disney can't cancel Doctor Who. Disney don't have that ability. All they can do is not reinvest in it. Doesn't mean it's the end of Doctor Who. It just means it comes back home, where it is anyway, and it will be funded in a different way. And of course, there are all sorts of issues about the BBC's funding, the licence fee and so on, less money available. But I think for something like Doctor Who, which has massive international appeal and a decent audience at home, I think they'll find the money. So I don't think, regardless of what you may hear people saying, Disney will pull out, Disney will pull out. One, I don't think they will. I think we'll get another 2 seasons. They may well pull out after that. But again, we're looking so far in the future, none of us knows what's going to happen there. But no, I don't think they'll pull out now. I think they will renew it for another 2 series. And I think that even if they do pull out, Doctor Who just comes back home. Russell T Davies and Bad Wolf will have a rethink about how they tell the stories and the stories that they tell. It might even work to the show's benefit, but if they've got to tell slightly smaller stories. I'd like to see that, actually. I'd like to see Doctor Who becoming perhaps more intimate, a bit more like 73 Yards, although that had a lot of stuff in it. It was probably quite an expensive episode. But I think you could tell smaller stories. Some of the best classic Doctor Who stories were stories told in a smaller environment. Things like Horror of Fang Rock is one that immediately comes to mind. An intimate story set in the lighthouse. You could do a lot of that sort of stuff with Doctor Who. They always did. So I don't think that Disney pulling out is the be-all and end-all. It's not the end of the show by any means. It might impact things like spin-offs that Russell wants to do. I think maybe they'll have to sort of pull things back and say, well, we'll focus on the show itself. And again, that might not necessarily be a bad thing. So don't be fooled by these online people who tell you that if Disney won't recommission it because it's done badly. One, we don't know if it's done badly. Two, even if Disney do pull out, it's not the end because Doctor Who just comes back home. Spin-offs. Let's talk briefly about spin-offs. There is a spin-off in the works. I think we all know that. We've heard things rumoured. Yeah, even yesterday there was lots of talk about a spin-off which has been rumoured again for a while, called The War Between the Land and the Sea. This was, you may recall, the line that Ncuti Gatwa's doctor uttered at the beginning of 73 Yards when they came out of the TARDIS, and I noticed the line at the time because I'd heard this title bandied around. And yesterday there were some very strong rumours. It's still not been confirmed, and Russell himself has hinted that there are production offices in place and things are happening. But over the last week or so, there's been things online about upcoming productions and directors and so on, and this show seems to be on the horizon. It's filming in September under that title at the moment, starring Freema Agyeman as Martha Jones, of course, from series 3 and 4 of Doctor Who. One of the great unsung companions of modern Doctor Who. I think people often think of Rose Tyler and Amy Pond, but for me, Martha Jones was as strong as either of those as characters, and I think Freema Agyeman's a damn good actor who's done very well in America. She is back in the UK now. She's on stage in London until August. This thing is due to start filming in September. So this is what is rumoured. This 5-part series pitched at a similar Doctor Who sort of audience level with the involvement of units. Kate Lethbridge-Stewart, played by Gemma Redgrave, of course. Shirley Bingham, played by Ruth Madeley. And Mel Bush. Good old Bonnie Langford, who's so good in Empire of Death. This is what I hear. And it's sort of a rural environment with UNIT getting involved with something that Martha's involved with. That's what I hear, and that's what I really would love to see, because I'd like to see Martha again, because she was a great character. So we've got that coming, and I'm looking forward to that. I just would like it to be confirmed, but I suspect as it's going to production in September, apparently, we'll have some sort of official confirmation in the next few weeks. Stay tuned, as someone used to say. So that's a position, as far as I'm concerned, as my interpretation of Doctor Who's future. It does have a future. I would like to see it doing better. I mean, again, we don't know the full figures. We do know that I think Space Babies, the first episode of the series, is now at around 6 million viewers. This is after the 28-day sort of catch-up-y thing. And I suspect that the final figures the BBC will be looking at for all these episodes are going to be around 5 to 6 million. And of course, with Doctor Who being on the iPlayer, it's going to keep on ticking over. People are going to keep watching it and finding it. On the weekend, I saw a friend of mine who had recorded, I think he still records things, he recorded all the episodes to watch and felt, oh, it's probably one of those things I'll just end up deleting. And I said to him, no, watch it, you must watch it. And I've heard of a few people who have just want to box set it, because a lot of people do like binging and like box setting. They don't want to watch it week by week. I suspect these episodes will eventually do very well, about 7 million viewers. But it is the way of TV these days that we don't get this instant ratings hit anymore. Things take time, things build over the weeks and months, and I think that's what's going to happen. And those are the metrics that the BBC are going to be looking at when they look at Doctor Who's future. If it does have to come back in-house, and as I say, I don't necessarily think that'll happen, but if it does come back in-house, they will be looking at those figures and thinking Doctor Who gets 7 million viewers across a certain period. That's worth putting money into. And Doctor Who's an international brand anyway. So, yeah, that's where I think we are with the future of Doctor Who. I think the future is healthy for Doctor Who. Don't be misled by the online lunatics who tell you it isn't. They've got their own agendas. I think that there will be Doctor Who for some time. There's possibly an argument it could be rested at some point. It should be rested. But again, that's a whole other issue and possibly something for another video. But I think in the shorter, longer midterm, I think Doctor Who's going to be around for a little while yet. Right, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, why not like and subscribe? Thumbs up as well. Subscribe as well. I've had a few new subscribers, but it would be nice to get things moving a little higher again. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you think about the future of Doctor Who. As ever, the usual proviso, if you just put Doctor Who is shit, Doctor Who's dead, Disney, hate it, those comments will never see the light of day, so save your time, don't bother. But if you've got some constructive observations or thoughts, would love to hear them in the comment section down there. Thank you for watching. I will see you very soon. Until I do, keep taking the stuff.